Hey guys, welcome back to the INSITE channel. Today we have Kreaz in the Crosshairs, a Swede who has most recently made a name for himself with Finest. You guys reached like top 19 in the world and played in the Pinnacle Cup championship LAN, but has now moved over to China for a new challenge. I think a really interesting career path. But firstly today, how you doing? How's China?
Yeah, I'm doing good. China is nice, good food, nice weather. So it's all good here.
Yeah, that was definitely when I heard you go to China, I was like, this man's a big fan of food. Like he's gonna enjoy the Chinese food. But I actually just want to focus on like the whole China stuff at first. Like, how did this all come about? Because from an outside perspective, it's super random to have you and Bloggers move to Wings Up. Like that seemed like a really weird move. But like, how did this all come about, basically?
So actually, I got contact from Wings Up even like half a year ago, even more maybe.
Mm.
First time, I think it's more because it was for the last like qualifiers for the armors.
Yeah.
It's like 2 months prior to that even. And they just asked me if I was interested in stuff, and then I had my old agent. And uh, it didn't happen that time because they were like, "Oh, we're pressed on time, and we want to keep like Chinese lineup just to like don't make things up, just before the RMRs." And then now I think it was like probably now it's around 2.5 months ago or something. I just contacted my old agent that I'm not with anymore and just asked him like about me again, and he put us in contact, and we started talking basic, and then yeah, that's what happened basically.
Were you like a little part? Were you like confused almost? You were like, it seems really random to be like contacted by like a Chinese team. And what are your like general thoughts on having these like two European Chinese teams? I feel like that's kind of almost becoming the meta now.
Yeah, I think the two European, I think it depends a bit on your mindset. I think if you come in here and you want to like make the Asian teams like play European CS, it's not really gonna work. Uh, because they have a completely different mindset about the game. They see it very differently compared to what we do in Europe, and I think you need a long time if you want to like adapt to the uh, European CS here. I think you will need a super long time. I think if you want to have like more short term success, you have to kind of like be a bit loose, and try to like maybe like mix it a bit between the
Be
styles, like
open-minded.
yeah, you
Yeah.
have to be super open minded, and you have to like mix it a bit between the like Asian style, like they
Yeah.
have really aggressive style and the European style, so you can like implement some things. But I think if you try to implement too much things, uh, it won't really work anymore.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's interesting because you've kind of got like Swedish CS, which is like proper CS, and then so like you're talking about like aggressive CS. Like, what would be the main differences then? Like, is it just kind of like the pace of the game?
I think like the pace, but also like uh, like it sounds bad, but like people are running around way more,
Yeah.
like when you
Okay.
see like European defaults, and CIS teams, like you take your time, you clear this,
Hmm.
you keep holding, whereas here someone is like, okay, I cleared cave, I'm just now I go clear mid,
Oh,
like
okay. Yeah.
more like that, people are not like, okay, we cleared K, what can we do now, they're more like, okay, I cleared here, I cleared here, yeah, I cleared here, and then it's like, okay, but maybe next time, we don't really have to do it, like you don't have to clear the whole map, we can just focus on what we cleared and then make a play, and it's same
Yeah.
like on city sides. I would say like in general all teams here, except for maybe TYLOO and Mongols, are way worse on the city sides because that exact reason, like people are playing the city sides like way different. In Europe, you're like used to everyone like always using their nades if they have, always like trying
Yeah.
to rotate over stack sites and stuff. They don't really do that much here. Um, but yeah, like that's of course something I want to like implement a bit more in my team. But like when we practice and stuff, you can really notice like they can play like 1-1-1 when they're 3 versus 3 on CT. Like they don't really care.
Okay. Like, so because there's a lot to unpack from that. First, I think like where I want to look at it is just like, how do you think you guys will do if you like go to Europe, for instance? Like, if you've kind of got these like big differences in how the game in how you play the game, do you think that like it still could be fine, or do you feel like that would maybe have to change? Like, you're currently in like the Zhongnaping, I can't like it's Swedish,
Mm-hmm.
man.
Yeah, shipping. Yeah,
The
shipping
close
qualifier.
qualifier. Like, if you qualify to that and go to Europe, like how do you think you'll do while playing like this type of CS basically?
Yeah, so I think like as long as everyone is on the same page, of course we don't have that much practice yet, so of course we would need more time. I think it's 2 weeks until we have the closed qualifiers.
Yeah.
I think like the more you're on the same page, it's like fine to play more aggressive, like as long as like everyone knows what they should do, because there
Mm.
is like aggressive teams in Europe as well. But I
Oh
think
yeah.
like the main difference here is like that almost every single team is aggressive, whereas in Europe you have like one team here, one team there, who's like more
Mm.
more aggressive, whereas here I feel like everyone is kind of like W gaming, I feel like in general, like my team is, I feel like we're not like super aggressive. Uh, I'm trying to help a lot like mid rounds to slow down and stuff. But yeah, I think whereas European teams it might be a bit hard in the beginning. Uh, but yeah, like that's also like due to there's not that many teams to practice here, so the games are kind of, when you play someone like 6 times in a week, like the sixth game, you're not gonna like, like you can't like use your full strat book or anything. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
Yeah, like we were talking about before we started, and like it kind of makes sense when you say it, but I didn't think it'd be that bad. Like, did you think coming into China it'd be like this kind of almost NA effect in a sense of like there's just no teams to practice? Like, was this something you expected?
Not really. Like I thought there was like a good amount of practice. I don't know. I actually thought, like you said before, maybe you could practice Australian teams. Doesn't seem like it. Probably being difference too high. So we have like few teams like Mongols, Lin Vision, TYLOO, Rare Atom, Steel Helmet, Atox, Eruption. Like there's a few teams you can prac, but like in general, there's not that many teams. There's like 10 decent teams maybe. So yeah.
Okay, that yeah, it's like how do you then go from playing all these guys in practice to then them being your competitors? Like, do you have to change how you practice so you don't show everything going into the officials?
I mean, yeah, I guess that's what most people do here, like we notice like a big difference when we play practice versus when we play the officials. And I think that's kind of like I think you can still like practice your rounds and stuff, but you wouldn't use them the same way as you would in an official, you just try to either just run them just to run them, or you just don't run that many strats, and you just focus on default.
That must be. It's like, do you feel like that really just deteriorates how much you can progress as a team if like you literally can't practice?
Yeah, I mean, personally, yeah, because like I'm used to playing in Europe, we have like 100 different teams you can practice, and all are
Yeah,
decent. So I like I'd say like there is like some positives because you're gonna play these teams in qualifiers and stuff. You can get like a read on them,
yeah. Okay,
but
yeah,
there is also like tons of negatives with only being able to prac like a handful of teams.
yeah. Does this feel like it puts a lot of reliance on these close qualifier events of being like, if we can get like outside of China and Asia, we could actually like that's what's going to spur us on. Like, do you feel like that's the most important thing for you guys right now is like to get to a different region and play a tournament there?
Uh, like of course, like
Yeah.
the goal is like to qualify for all these big events,
Mm.
Jönköping, Atlanta, the RMR if possible. Uh, and like now in Asia, you have like the two top teams are like Mongols and now TYLOO, and like
Yeah.
you can obviously see the difference when you play with those guys because like they're playing more like European CS in a way, even though they are still, I would still argue they are like more aggressive than most European teams. Like you can still like notice that they have been playing quite a few events now in Europe, you know.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And like just talking about that aggressive style, you were talking about like utility usage. Do you feel like there's a change in how util's used? Like you're saying on the CD side, like dumping all your nades. Like how is that kind of in comparison a little bit? Like what does it feel like to be playing like using your utility? How do people use it basically?
Um, I would say like it depends a lot on the players, but I would say in
Yeah.
generally people just use their util more like without really having like a plan, you know,
Okay.
like just I'm Molotov here, I smoke here, but like there's I wouldn't say like there's no purpose. They probably have like an idea, but it's not as clear. Like in Europe, you often when you watch a demo, you
Yeah.
can like instantly understand like why he used the smoke, why he did that. And this I would say is a little bit more like when you watch like the lower tier NA teams, you know, sometimes you're just like wondering like why are you using this util in this situation? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
sometimes you can just get a feel, you know, when you watch. So I would say it's a bit more
Like
like that.
panic throws and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Or like just like sometimes like one guy asks for a flash of five guys flashes, you know, like
Okay.
stuff like that.
That must be really weird. And like, do you find that having like you and bloggers in the team now, this is them also attempting to change sign like this, like bring you guys in to go, okay, like how do you guys do it, and kind of meshing the two together? Is that like, can you gauge that's kind of almost maybe what the plan is now?
Yeah, so I would say so. Like I'm not in game leader in this team. Lan is in game leader, but
Okay.
they usually like a lot falls on me, you know, with like mistakes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How I want to play. I have like uh, I have a lot to say, you know. I can always come in with notes and stuff about things, and they will always listen to me, and they always try to like implement things I say. But at the same time, you know, when you come like from Europe and you know like how kind of like everyone has like their own structure, you know, and you don't
Mm.
really want to come in here and like change everything, like I said before.
Yeah, exactly.
So I try to be like mindful of what I actually try to comment on and not.
Mm.
But I feel like they want me to like help with some things, but I also don't want to do it like too much, you know.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It's like finding that fine line. And I was
Yeah.
actually gonna ask, like, what is your role? 'Cause, like, I know you can call, I know you can kind of do like, but like, I know you're not calling in this team. So, like, are you playing like a second caller in the game as well?
Yeah. So mostly I'm second calling, and I uh, it's like a bit split. We had like a bit split duties on different maps,
Okay.
depending on what they played before a little bit and now. So right now it's not like fully set, but they have mostly of like the rotation positions, uh, positions where you like can make plays. Mostly of those
Mm.
positions.
Okay, that makes sense. So like star player in a sense, like making those
Uh,
plays.
yeah, not on all maps. Like Mirage, I play like middle ST, but on CT I play like A. So there's like
Yeah.
a little split in some roles, but I don't have like any heavy anchor positions, for example.
Yeah. That's a little bit different to finest, right? Like you weren't playing maybe it was in like yeah, like how is that is that different to finest, and like is that a bit weird, like changing up from what you kind of know?
So like in finance, I also didn't really play the roles that I wanted. I just took the
Yeah.
roles that other people didn't want to play. Now I have a bit more of the roles that I actually prefer to play.
Okay.
Like I said, not on every map. Uh, and that's also like a small difference from Europe, because usually in Europe you want to like mirror the positions on every map, whereas
Yeah.
here they're a bit more like, maybe you want to play here on this map. Oh, I really like this map. I want to play this position, you know, which is not something you really see in Europe that much. But it doesn't have to be negative, but you know, it can make things a bit complicated within the team. So, uh, but yeah, no issues around that so far, at least.
Okay. Yeah, I guess just like keep your opponents on their feet. Like you think I'm gonna
Yeah,
anchor this map? No, I'm star player running down
yeah.
middle. um but yeah, we were kind of talking about like you second calling. What's the communication like in the team? Because like that's obviously when you look at a team like this, that's like okay, communication. Like you've got literally you and Bloggers already are like two different countries, and then
Yeah.
like English being the unified language, kind of all these different things. Like yeah, so how's that been for you?
Yes, so Gas is fully fluent in English. He has super good
Yeah.
super good English. Land and flying. They have like in game the English is pretty fine. Outside the game, it's a bit more difficult. Lan understands a lot more than he can speak, so you can explain things to him, and he can like relay it in Chinese, but it's
Yeah,
hard
yeah,
for him to say it in English sometimes.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Um, I would say like the communication is way better than I expected. I actually thought
Yeah.
it would be like horrible. It has been kind of fine in game. I feel like it's pretty much like fine. You know, they sometimes talk a bit too much Chinese if they want to
Mm,
explain things, but otherwise it's been pretty good,
yeah. I guess
decent.
it's just kind of like one of those things where like you would understand it wouldn't be great, but
Mhm.
like it seems better than it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, talking about bloggers, like would you have ever interacted with him beforehand? 'Cause, like it feels like he played majority like regional Counter Strike. Like would that have been a player that you would have known before? And because of that, was it like bringing over this duo to Wings Up? Because like Kory and phzy is like they've played together and stuff like that. Did you kind of have that same with bloggers?
So I was actually the one who brought in bloggers,
Okay.
and it was only from playing CCT qualifier with him. We qualified to close qualifier in CCT South or something like that. I don't remember. And I just played with him. So I played like 5 officials with him, like in the qualifier, and then we were supposed actually to bring another upper, but he dropped out like last seconds when flights was booked and everything. So um, I just asked the bloggers the same day. This guy said he doesn't want to come, and bloggers was like, "Oh, sure, let's go." You know, use something kind of. It's like China. Oh, that's so random. Okay, let's go. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to know who the other opera was?
No.
Okay, yeah,
Oh,
that's fair enough. Yeah.
I'm not gonna
That's
throw him under the bus, but
I mean,
yeah.
fair play to bloggers though for literally being like, ah, fuck it, we're going to China. I
Yeah.
kind of rate that. That's fair enough. And now he's like, yeah, all right. But also, yeah, like speaking about kind of flying to China, I feel like it's something that people might overlook. Like, you've literally moved over to China. Like, you have moved
I
across the world for this. How's that being like? That must be pretty weird, just as like an individual to be just like in a country where it's like completely different, and you're so far away from everything. Like, how has that just kind of been like on maybe like more of a personal level?
yeah. So like personally, it's fine for me. I've been to Asia quite a few times.
Yeah.
I don't live in Sweden anymore. I live in Slovakia with my girlfriend. And now obviously I'm in China, but um, I don't really like. I don't mind that much. Things been pretty fine. Like I told, like I love the food here. I enjoy like the atmosphere and everything. But of course, like there is some things, especially like interacting with other people and stuff. Right now, it's
Yeah.
like basically only the team. People don't speak English here at all. Not in shops. Not when you order food, whatever. So of course, like the social bit is a bit different. But I think for me personally, like it's fine. You know, like I wanted to commit to this, and
Yeah.
it's something I thought about. You know, before even moving over here. So
Mm. Yeah, that's fair enough. And I guess kind of staying on the theme of like how do you feel about things? CS2 because that's also like you've moved to China and then a whole new game to learn. What's your general thoughts on CS2? Like, are you enjoying it? Are you not enjoying it?
actually, I'm enjoying it a lot. Like
Okay.
I I do think there is some flaws and stuff, but I also think like the whole like concept is like super good. I really enjoy it. I enjoy the new smokes. Um, the sound obviously needs a rework. Uh, some like things like when you run into each other, you get blocked. Stuff like that, of course, has to be fixed. The sub tick is like the more and more you play, you don't really think about it that much. But of course, like that's also like a subject that obviously could be discussed about. But like in general, I just really love the game. Like I'm just playing like 5-6 packs a day. I'm playing practice. You know, I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like right now.
Fair enough. Like, do you find like some of these changes with like the smokes and just kind of all the other some like small changes? Do you think this raises the skill ceiling of the game?
Uh, I'm not sure. Like, I would definitely argue it changes it. If it raises it or lowers it, I'm not quite sure. Like as of now, uh, we haven't really seen how the meta developed. I would
Yeah.
argue that uh, I would argue for now what I've seen that the T sides are way stronger, even though you would assume like the CT sides would be stronger when you can nade the smokes.
Yeah.
Uh, or from what I've seen, like the T sides are generally pretty strong now, at least here in Asia and a few games that I watch from Europe. So I would say like we have to wait a bit and see the meta. But I feel like, especially with the open skybox, at least, I feel like it could definitely raise the skill ceiling, with what you
Yeah.
can actually do in game.
Hmm. Yeah, with like util. And something I've kind of noticed from caster games, like a lot of teams just haven't started utilizing some of these new features. How's it been like in China? Are teams utilizing some of these things, and have people kind of like understood already what to do with the game?
Um, I would say it's a bit divided. I would say, especially when we play those TYLOO and Mongols, I feel like they have been a bit better at actually utilizing it. I would say some
Yeah.
of these lower Asian teams are still kind of W aim, so they're not really focusing that heavy on util. And for my team, I think, yeah, I would say like we're pretty good at trying to find like the new nades, Not out here, shout out, you
Yeah.
know. So I would say it's a bit divided. I think some things is viable as of now.
Yeah.
Some things are maybe not discovered yet, Uh,
Mm.
but I think people try to use it, but I'm not sure if everyone is using it.
Yeah, fair enough. And we've talked about China. I just kind of want to talk about your career as a whole now, because it feels like like you actually have had a very long career. Like you've been around for a very very long time. Especially like in the Swedish scene and FPL. So yeah, do you just want to talk me through when you're coming up? Because it feels like you were playing on like loads of mixes for ages, and you were just grinding FPL. Was this how it felt like for you, just kind of like bouncing around and just like improving?
Yeah, so I've been playing pretty much professionally since like 2015, maybe 16.
Jesus.
Um,
It's longer than I've played CS, period.
yeah, so I would say like between 2017, 18, I had like my biggest, that's where like the biggest improvement happened, my career.
Yeah.
Around 2019, 20, 21, like all this time I played in Epsilon, Simon, I played uh, jumping in for Genji, North. Around that time, I had
Mm.
pretty big issues with my wrist. I had big wrist issues. Still have a little bit to this day, but it doesn't hurt anymore, so it's not really limiting me anymore. But I had for like 3 years big issues, so I really felt like that kind of limited my career. And
Oh wow.
uh, about like going from different teams to teams, it was basically like, I came into Epsilon. They promised a contract, never got a contract. We lost all,
Epsilon
blah
was
blah
pretty
blah.
bad. Yeah,
Yeah,
Epsilon had a lot of issues. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Italian. I played some Italian CS. I was just friend with Biohazard from FPL. He just invited me. I just came there to play. I stood in for Red Reserve, playing in Ukraine, playing the Betsnet Masters when their in-game leader was he hurt himself in the gym. Uh, Jumped in with Genji. Uh, for Flashpoint, they just asked me last
Yeah.
second to fly out to Serbia to play with them. So I played in quite a few teams, but I would say like not really until 2021 I actually played like in a stable team with like contract, where I joined Apex, and then later on I joined Finest. These are like the probably like the longest standing teams I was in. Before that I
Yeah.
was mostly playing in mixes, like going around, trying to improve, but obviously like I was hindered a bit by my wrist problem, and probably I should have gone to a hospital and check it out, but I never did, and yeah, now I'm here today.
Yeah, that's quite because it just kind of felt like you look at your stats and you're like, okay, good stats, but then just as you said, like just not a team.
And
Like wrist issue. So did it just kind of like go away? Like what kind of happened with that? Did it yeah.
so I started doing exercises almost every day,
Yeah.
like just simple like exercise I found on YouTube and stuff, and I did it for about like 2 months, and it started going away. Then I stopped doing it, came back, So now I do it basically every day. And I would also say, like, when I was younger, maybe I didn't always have like the best attitude, That could also be like a factor why I didn't get into some of the teams maybe that I should have been in.
Yeah.
S-
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, like you've got some interesting things. You were talking about like standing in, like you've stood in for Fnatic, North, and Gen G at
And
like
he,
two big lands. What does that do to like a player's stock, for instance? Because you've like it's literally tier one CS, and like you held your own. You did quite well. Like you did well enough when you played in them. Like, what does that do to like your stock as an individual? Like, does it affect anything? And did you potentially think it would affect more than it did?
so I do think like if you get these opportunities, it's a really big deal. If you do good, especially, you can definitely like instantly like jump the stages, and get into
Yeah.
a really good team. For me personally, it didn't make that big of a difference because I I didn't really keep up with it afterwards. Like I jumped in with Fnatic, I played pretty good, I did some like amazing rounds, and then I uh, came back to like playing some tier 3 2 CS, where I did like fine, but I didn't really do that good. And uh, I feel like I'd say like I had my chances, but I never really felt like I don't know, it's hard to say, but like never really felt like I actually deserved to take like the next step because I didn't really keep the consistency, myself.
Mm. Okay, so wait, when you mean consistency, is it kind of just like you'd go play for these tier one events, nail it, and then kind of just be like, there's no like grinding at like a tier two level. Is that kind of what it is like?
I was still grinding, it was just the results was like lacking.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And so you had like an interesting thing which I didn't even know about. Like, is this something that I like? Yeah, we just never spoke about. Was you traveled for North? So like, kind of what happened there? Like, you
Yeah,
played one event with them. Yeah, like, kind of what was the story with that whole thing?
yeah. So North, I think first time I got contacted by Graham, who was working there. Uh,
Yeah, Messioso,
Messiah,
right? Yeah, or
MSCOso
whatever.
maybe
Yeah,
his name. Sorry,
I
something
don't
like
know.
that. I'm not sure.
No idea even to be honest.
He just wrote to me after I had been playing FPL, and he just told me that there might be in the future an opening. And that was like in September, maybe something like that.
Mm,
And then nothing really happened. I got asked by Genji to play Flashpoint for them, and we played Flashpoint. I did pretty well the first 2 games. I played super good versus OG and versus Pro. Then I got contacted by him, I think the day after we had played versus Pro or something, and he asked
mm,
me if I wanted to play with them when I come home from Serbia.
yeah.
So obviously, like for me, I didn't have anything at that point. I didn't really have any good team offers. People, I had some talks, but nothing for certain. So, yeah, I think end of November, I came back to Sweden, and basically next day or something, I played a practice game with them, and they were like, "Okay, you want to play like DreamHack Masters qualifier or something?" And I played that with them, and then my Danish was not really that good, so we decided it wouldn't really work, because I didn't understand them. I just asked all the time, like, what? So,
Yeah. That's
so yeah.
weird. Like, were you? That's bizarre. Like, I just assumed maybe you spoke English or something like that for some reason. Yeah,
Yeah,
like that
they
was
were
that was
like three
weird.
Danish, and then Lekka had played there for a long time, so he understood like to speak Danish, it won't.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, that's unfortunate. You kind of then went back to Apex, and like you're saying, like your first proper team. How did it feel to like actually kind of be playing in a proper team and actually like grinding out? Like, did you feel like you also improved quite a lot in that period of like team knowledge?
I would say like the team knowledge I gained a lot by playing all this like standing in with Genji. I was
Yeah,
for a whole month, had automatic, Kusta, Elma
yeah,
Pade, like all these guys actually teaching me a lot about the game. It was probably one of the times where I wouldn't say maybe I got that much better individual, but especially like definitely as a team player,
yeah,
I improved a lot at that time. As well when I was like standing in with Fnatic, even though it was only over a week, I was talking a lot with Golden, and I was learning a lot. So I would say like during this period as a team player, I would say I improved mostly. In Apex, we didn't really have a leader, so we were like a proper team, but also not, But it was like
mm.
more long term, And I feel like in Apex, it was probably maybe like one of the worst teams in some ways that I played with, but also like it was like a good experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you. It makes sense. And I think Fires is really interesting because you obviously like you had a lot of success there. Like you guys ended up, like you won one of the like Pinnacle Cups, and then that allowed you to go over to the LAN. But when you look at Finest, and from my perspective at that time, it wasn't just success straight away. Like, how did it take a little bit for Finest kind of to mull things over and actually get on the board?
Yeah, so uh, our first iteration of Finest was actually it was Mar, Anarches, Shocks, and me.
Mm.
Uh, and we started off pretty strong, pretty early. We qualified for we won advanced and we qualified for the MDL Premier, whatever it was called back
Yeah.
then. We played some Elisa tournaments, did fine. We played for around 6 months together, maybe a bit less. Then there was some team issues starting to appear. Me, Anarchist Shocks decided to stay together, and some people didn't want to play with Robin. We removed him. Then we had some issues with Mar. He couldn't really focus on CS fully, so the org decided to remove him. And then we were for like 2 months looking to fucking find players. It was impossible.
Yeah.
Like we were just, I don't know, we played with like 6 different players. Something we were gonna get Lollipop, we couldn't buy him out. Like it was
Oh,
just
I
a
remember that. Yeah.
big shit show. Like everything was just not going according to plan. And then
Mm.
Twist and Pleasant had been pretty good with Savage, but they couldn't seem to find an org. So I just contacted Pleasant and was like, hello, would you be interested in joining us? And yeah, they came in. And once again, when we had the new lineup, we started doing pretty good pretty early. In some tournaments, some smaller tournaments, always got the playoffs and stuff like that. Not maybe every single tournament, but most of the tournaments we did pretty good. And then yeah, we won the Pinnacle Online Cup, and that was probably like our height of like how good we played. I would also argue like on the LAN, of course, but it was only like I think we only played 3 matches or something.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
It was like you played 2 best of ones, best of 3, and then another best of 3 on the stage.
Yeah.
Like
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. So 4
like
games.
3 games. Yeah, like 3 games if you count like the best of ones and best of 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so like what's I think an interesting thing is actually looking at the importance of these online tournaments because like they are maybe not as relentless last year, but this year it's like they're just all the time. Like they just
Mm-hmm.
never end.
Yeah.
Like how for you when you won that Pinnacle Cup championship, for instance, or the Pinnacle Cup, like the online stuff, like how did that actually like? Obviously, it gave you the LAN, but like in the absolute
We
moment, like
didn't know that. We didn't know it
yeah,
would give us a LAN.
yeah, you didn't know the LAN. So like before you knew it gave you the LAN, how did that like? Do you still see that as like a big deal that you won this tournament?
Yeah, definitely. I think some of these tournaments are a bit underrated as well. In not maybe how to say, like mentally the boost it gives you to actually win these tournaments, even though it's
Yeah.
online, whatever. And also just to get up in the ranking, because like if you don't play the blast events and you're not invited to like pro league and stuff, there's not that many ways to actually race in the ranking. You have to qualify for pro league, which isn't that easy because there's a lot of good teams, or you have to qualify for like some of these dream hacks or whatever. So I think like the CCT tournaments, the LISA, they're super important to actually, if you're a tier 2, tier 3 teams, to actually be able to actually climb in the rankings.
Yeah. Yeah, because like looking at that tournament, like you literally came from like the first stage of like the whole event, and then
Yeah,
just
we came from like the first stage.
yeah, that must have made it feel like pretty good actually. I can imagine that must just felt really good. Yeah, like speak about rankings. I feel like you guys got lucky with Finest of like hitting those higher rankings, but then you hit the higher rankings and like nothing quite happened. So like, yeah, what happened with Finest? Because you went to the LAN, LAN was good, you played well, and then that was it.
Yeah, so in general, I would say we did it at like quite a bad time because we did it just before
Yeah.
the summer break,
Yeah.
and the ranking points only stay for 3 months, and so our ranking basically disappeared. Like I think we won the Pinnacle online like 3 months before like the summer break end. So basically those points were already gone when we came back after the summer break, so we only had the LAN points left. We were still fine ranking. I think we were around 25, something like that. And then we had the RMRs, and we had some issues in the team. People were fighting, blah, blah, blah. Came that some of the players wanted to remove Anarchist from the team, and yeah, they decided to do that. I wasn't really on board with that. I didn't really agree that we had to move anyone, but they wouldn't want to work together. So that's what happened. We didn't qualify for the RMR. People had already decided to kick him before we even started the RMR. So it felt kind of pointless to even play it, but whatever. They wanted to kick him even if he would qualify. And at around that point, we tried to play with Hades. The issues was still there, even though we removed Anarchus. So the mood in the team wasn't the greatest. We had like the Swedish land to play, Svenska Cupen or something like that. And the mood was still the same, everything was the same, and I didn't really feel like we were going anywhere. And then Finest also decided to drop out of esports.
Yeah.
So they were going to go to the Svenska Cupen. I was going to go there as well. But then they wanted to make like more changes because they felt like everyone felt it like nothing changed, after removing Anarchist. It was the same. There was bad mood. There was no like real will to win, And then they asked me if I want to go to this LAN or if they can like try to play with someone else. And I was kind of fed up at that point. So I just told them like, whatever, just play with someone else. Like I really didn't really feel like it was going anywhere. And yeah, that's about it. Like that's how it ended, sad.
Yeah, because that is quite unfortunate because like that finance team was good. Like you proved you could be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the LAN experience, how was that actually to come back and like play on a LAN? Because that would have been the first time in quite a while. Like, did you also think a little bit this was like a new, like this was going to be you guys kind of starting to get into it and like actually play at like a pretty high level?
Yeah, so personally, that was like how I felt. I was happy with all my teammates. I felt everything was great, but obviously, everyone didn't really share that view. I get like when you're playing in international teams, people have different personalities and stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't always have to like love your teammates, At least that's my view, But I feel like sometimes people are way too drastic in like wanting to make changes just because something they don't like about someone, the way they talk. Maybe sometimes someone comes late like 3 times in a row and it doesn't really affect anything, but people get angry at it, and instead of like trying to fix the problems, people just want to remove players from the team, which I usually don't really agree with because I feel like it's really like bad way because you will always find problems
Yeah.
with some of your teammates. Like the longer you play, the more problems you can always find with your teammates, you know?
Oh yeah,
Because
completely.
people have flaws. Like everyone has flaws, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I know for myself, sometimes I get tilted and I'm like, you know, I'll be like, oh, I got blind, you know, by some teammates flash, you know, and like I don't even always mean it in a bad way, you know,
Mm.
but it's just like people have these things, and like for me, like the most important is like that you try to stick together as a team, you know, and you try to solve these things. But a lot of times, I feel like, especially in international teams, you know, as soon as you spot a problem with someone and people are like getting a little bit annoyed, they're like, okay, let's remove him, you know. They don't even really talk to him about the problem.
That's interesting because yeah, like, is that kind of what your mental is now for Wings Up of like long term? Like we're just gonna stick it out. Like we're kind of playing for like 6 months, like as a definite, no matter what. Is that kind of your mental a little bit?
Yeah, I mean that's like that has been my mentality for at least like the last two
Yeah,
years. You know, I really want to just stick with one team because you can see like all these young upcoming teams. Most of them are actually the teams who has been sticking together. Like
yeah.
it's very rare that a newly formed team, you know, will actually have some success.
Hmm.
Maybe one tournament, but you know, in the long run, like that's not
Yeah,
enough. If you're a
exactly.
tier 3 team, tier 2 team, like one tournament is not enough. Qualifying for one DreamHack and then disappearing for 6 months, like
It's not enough. Yeah.
yeah, it's not enough.
Okay. And just kind of coming towards the end now, I just want to talk about like your little like gap of just nothing because you
Uh-huh.
like from what I looked at, I was just like, I was very surprised you hadn't found a team because you did play well in finals. Like you reached top 20. I would have thought you would have been snatched up by like because there was loads of Swedish projects that were going on.
Uh-huh.
There was like yeah, I mean like there was loads of Swedish projects. It was kind of like the whole creator thing, like the Prospects team, Young Ninjas, Godsent did something. Yeah, like the list kind of goes on. What kind of happened in like the last basically year and like 3 months between finest and now coming to Wings Up?
Yes, so I didn't have that many offers, but I talked with a few teams. I talked with Godsend, uh, and they decided to go with another player. Like when the project was starting, I had talks with a few teams. I even trialed for a few teams, and I would say, in general, this last 7 months maybe, uh, the market has been very oversaturated with players because a lot of orgs have dropped out.
Yeah.
So I think like teams already have orgs and they're looking for players. Some of them were trialing like 10 players on the same positions. And like if you have a bad day or whatever, you know, like they might pick someone else. And that was basically what happened. Like all the teams that I actually tried for had a lot of other candidates, you know. And I don't know, like I thought myself maybe that all of us in finance, you know, when we got dropped, would have gotten some offers because we all did pretty decent individually and as a team.
Yeah.
But I think like the only one who actually had an offer was Anarchis. The rest of us didn't really have anything until like now recently.
Yeah. I was gonna say like that like shocks like does he still play Counter Strike? Like he was insane and then it's just
I
gone
don't
now.
think so. I think he took a break, and
Oh,
definitely like he might come back, but he took a break.
oh, that is unfortunate. Yeah, like were you like that was weird that no one got like do you think it's a big issue of like okay people saw the team crumble and people were like okay like there must be something going on there, like why do you think there must be just like the issue with like the like lack of offers type thing?
So I think I don't really think that was the issue. I think in general, just people are going for young players, whereas
Okay.
we were all like above 25. You know,
Yeah.
they feel like most people go for like the try to find like the next superstar,
Yeah.
whereas we were all like I would say like in finance we were all pretty like stable players. You know, I think everyone would be a good addition to any team, but
Hmm.
um like everyone was like older. We were all like everyone was okay 24 plus at that time, you know. And if you go like if you have the option as an org to pick a 24 years old who's like, oh, he's good, blah blah blah, and you have an option for like a 17-year-old who you probably think can become something more. I think most orgs are gonna go for those players.
Okay, that's like. Do you think that's kind of an issue actually of just like people trying to find the next Monacy and stuff like that? Because like it kind of comes stage where like you need to build a roster, like you can't completely rely on these just like talents. Like as you said, like you guys were stable, decent players with good stats. Like do you just not think like yeah? Do you think that's maybe like a bit of an issue that this is what people are going for?
I don't know if I would necessarily say like an issue in one way, but I do think that having some older players isn't always like a negative thing, and not everyone has like reached their ceiling when they're 24. You have players like Roy, Thatcher, these players who come up late. You had Oscar, who now he's been in the scene for like fucking years, but he came when he was 23, 4, to most sports, and became like one of the best operators in the world. I think the thing is that when I was younger, like all the way until like 2020, 2021, people didn't really go for young people at all. Everyone was like, oh, the older people are so much better. Why would you go for a young guy? Whereas around Corona time, that switched, and now people only go for young players instead of like having the mix, Now it's like everyone who's young is insane, and that's not true at all. Like there is older people who is good, still. But I feel like the mindset was like fully shifted, from like, okay, old players are the best. And now it's like young players are the best. It's not, there's nothing in between,
That's, I mean, yeah, it kind of does make sense actually, because there was a lot of like recycling back in the days, and then now there's like, well, you had your chance, but
now you never recycle anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you, is that, do you think there's going to be a middle ground, or do you think we're just going to continue to be in this thing of like a new 17-year-old gets found, okay, young people still the best?
I do think there will be a middle ground, but personally, I do like kind of agree with the idea to take younger players. I think there has to be a point, where like you cannot think that everyone is going to become Monacy, because they won't. And if you want to be a team competing at high level instantly from the get-go, I do think, I'm not saying like for me personally, I'm just saying I do think that you would need some of the older players who have some more experience, for sure. I don't think that just taking young players will, like, sometimes it's not enough that the in-game leader is experienced, you need someone else in the team who can help. But like, it's so hard, like there's always like a scale, whereas I can see the idea with taking younger players, it's easier to teach them. They obviously have a easier like learning curve, and also they have like a way longer, they will have a longer career, when you pick them up. So
more of an investment type thing.
So I do see the point, but I just think there has to be a little bit more of a middle ground.
Yeah, I agree. And kind of like, is there a little part of you then that sees this project now for Wings Up as like a redemption, to be like I didn't get picked up for a while, I'm gonna go to China, I'm gonna come qualify these big events, and I'm gonna crush everyone. Like kind of coming towards the end of this interview, is that maybe a little bit how you feel with this?
Yeah, of course. And there was like last 3 months, I was talking with like 5 European teams. Nothing happened, and like I said, I got this offer from Asia, and I really felt like, rather than just sit and do nothing, like I can take this opportunity, show my best, show that I can still compete, and hopefully qualify for some of these bigger events, because I feel like a lot of people just sit and wait for an opportunity, and if you wait too long, it's never gonna come, because people will forget about you. Like, so in one way, yeah, and in one way, I also just wanted to keep competing. I still feel like I have a lot to give.
Yeah, that makes sense. And hopefully with the worst announcement ever, and with you looking like an anime character.
I just need to scale my face emitter.
Bro, I looked at that photo and I was like, I haven't met this man for a year, but That is not how he looks
No,
like.
no, no,
Honestly.
no, no. And the
It's
funniest
so
thing was, it wasn't even Wingsup who did the edit. It was the photo agency. They just didn't think I look Asian enough or something. I have no clue, like what the fuck they did, but
Kreaz has been Asian. It was so funny. But
uh,
hopefully with these new changes and everything, that you'll be finding success. I feel like this is definitely a position where you can like really prove yourself. And I do hope the best to you and bloggers, because I feel like you're kind of both in similar positions in that way. And a big good luck to Wings Up. And with that, thank you so much for joining me, Kreaz. It's been a pleasure talking
yeah,
to you.
thank you.
I guess this is the second time he's on an interview, technically.
Yeah,
But yeah,
probably.
like pretty cool. But yeah, and with that, thank you everyone so much for watching at home, and make sure to stay tuned for next week for another episode of In the Crosshair. Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys later.